What's up? So last time is we talk about what we call animal cells and also tissues. And for today, we will talk about transport mechanisms. At the end of this lesson is you will be able to relate the structure and composition of the cell membrane to its function. Second one, explain transport mechanisms in cells. Third, differentiate exocytosis from endocytosis. Fourth is organize cell structures and types according to the transport mechanisms that involve them. And lastly, examine real-life scenarios and relate them to the process of transport mechanism. I have here different pictures of public transportations. So mostly, di ba, kung kapag pumapasok kayo sa school, ano ba yung karaniwan yung sinasakyan? So mostly jeep, yung iba naman tricycle, minsan nagmamotor, or yung iba naglalakad lang. So just like on these public transportations, or particularly just like us, cells have daily activities that require transport. So when we talk about transport mechanism, it refers to the different pathways and processes a cell must move substances in, out, and around itself. Learning about transport mechanism is insightful and useful since it has many real-life applications. So I have here different pictures showing the drying of foods, detoxification, and others. So let's go to the first one. So on the first image is I have here drying of foods. Halimbawa yung mga kinakain yung tuyo, mga dried squid, or different dried foods. Now, how is this picture an example of the vertical transport mechanism? So drying of foods is a method of preservation. So this method is common in traditional Filipino delicacies such as tuyo and others, and makes use of transport mechanism principles, particularly osmosis. Next one, so on the second image, is that drinking alcohol takes a toll on our liver because of how much it needs to filter and detoxify. The process by which these toxins coming from the alcohol that you are drinking and substances are removed from our system relies on the what they call transport mechanism. And for the third picture is we have here dialysis. Dialysis is unfortunately a common procedure here in the Philippines due to kidney failure, wherein the kidney can no longer filter our blood for waste. So an external filter must perform the task. So the treatment is based on the same concept of transport mechanism that is observed in our kidneys. So on the Sustainable Development Goals launched by the United Nations, one of the goals is focused on good health and well-being of all individuals. Just like in our cell membranes, we need to be responsible as to what goes in and what goes out of our body. Therefore, it is important for us to have a proper diet, to have controlled intake of food, and also we must be responsible on the use of medication and also alcohol. So before we proceed to the different examples of transport mechanism, is first let's talk about cell membrane. When we talk about the cell membrane, so it serves as the boundary between the cell's internal and external environment. And also, it regulates all substances that enter and exist the cells. And just like what we've mentioned on our past discussion, so when we talk about the cell membrane, it is the part of a cell that monitors what comes in and what comes out of the cell. When we talk about the cell membrane, medyo may pagka-choosy yan. Bakit may pagka-choosy? Pinipili niya lang kasi kung ano yung pwede niya papasukin at ano yung hindi. So, it exhibits selective permeability, which is why is it referred to as a semi-permeable membrane. Meron nakakapasok, merong hindi. Nakadepende sa karakteristik yan ng tinatawag nating cell membrane. Next one is let's proceed to the structure and organization of the plasma membrane. So the main body of the plasma membrane is composed of an amphipathic molecule known as a phospholipid. Ano naman ba itong tinatawag nating amphipathic molecule? So when we talk about amphipathic molecule, so these are molecules which is hydrophobic and hydrophilic. Ano naman ang ibig sabihin ng hydrophobic and hydrophilic? Ibig sabihin po nun, kapag amphipathic ang molecule natin, meron siyang part na takot sa tubig at meron din siyang part na gusto yung tubig. Kapag po sinabi natin hydrophobic, ito po yung part na takot sa tubig, or it is the one that repels the water. Then when we talk about hydrophilic, it is the part that attracts the water. And aside po doon sa nabanggit ko kanina, kapag sinabi din natin hydrophobic, from the word phobic, phobia, it fears water, or it is water-fearing. Kapag naman po sinabi natin hydrophilic, it is water-loving. Now, this unique structure allows the plasma membrane to adopt a bilayer structure wherein the hydrophilic surface is facing both the aqueous and external environment and also the cytosol. Additionally, because of its hydrophobic properties, the tails, ito po yung mga tails natin dyan, ito yung mga tinatawag nating fatty acid tails, form an internal layer. So these factors cause the plasma membrane to be semi-permeable to certain substances. Now, kung mapapansin niyo po dito ngayon, so halimbawa, merong water dyan, ina-attract sa taas, pero hindi siya makakapasok kasi nga, meron kang fatty acid na tails. Okay? So, ang ibig sabihin ng po nun, so mostly, kung ano yung nasa loob, kung ano yung water sa loob ng cell mo, hindi rin siya agad-agad na makakalabas kasi nga, meron tayong presence ng fatty acid na tails, which is the what they call hydrophobic. The plasma membrane is represented using a model known as the fluid mosaic. Now, bakit kaya siya tinawag na fluid mosaic? Tignan niyo po mabuti ang kanyang structure. So, kapag po kasi sinasabi nating fluid, yun po yung tinatawag niyo mismong cell membrane. Isa po siyang fluid, hindi po siya solid And also, bakit naman kaya siya tinawag na mosaic? Di ba po karaniwan kapag sinasabi natin mosaic, more on pinagsama-sama yung mga materials yan para makabuo ng isang artwork. Ganon din po sa isang plasma membrane. So, tinawag siyang mosaic kasi nga maraming mga proteins, maraming mga molecules na naka-embed sa kanya. Kaya po siya tinawag na fluid mosaic. So the different structures present on the plasma membrane can either be classified into the what we call peripheral. So kapag po sinasabi nating peripheral, so they can be found superficially attached to the outside layer of the membrane, doon sa labas po. And also kapag naman po sinasabi nating integral, so you can find them embedded within the bilayer, on which these different structures perform specific functions in the plasma membrane. The components of the plasma membrane can be divided into three. First one is we have the what I call transmembrane proteins. Tandaan nyo po kapag sinasabi nating trans, ano ba yung agad yun naiisip? More on transportation, di ba? So, these transmembrane proteins are proteins that regulates the movement of molecules across the membrane. So, these proteins form the transport mechanism of the cell. So, some examples of these transmembrane proteins are the carriers, the channels, and receptor proteins. Another one is we have what I call interior protein network. So, it determines and maintains the structure and form of the plasma membrane. They are responsible for the shape of the cell and the attachment of macromolecules in the membrane. Now, halimbawa, i-relate natin yan dun sa interior ng isang gulong. Ano ba yung purpose kung bakit mayroong interior ng isang gulong? Okay, very good. Because it is the one that gives shape dun po sa wheel natin. And ganun din po ang purpose ng tinatawag nating interior protein network. So, it gives the structure and it gives the form and also the shape. And lastly is you have the cell surface markers. So, these are responsible for the recognition of foreign and local cells and tissues. Kumbaga, sa isang cell, ito yung nag-identify or dyan sa mismo cell membrane, ito yung nag-identify kung anong cell ba yung mag-a-attach sa kanya. Oh, itong mag-a-attach sa akin, isa siyang stem cell. Oh, itong mag-a-attach sa akin, ito na isang klase namang cell. Cell surface markers. Just like what we've mentioned a while ago, so mostly po, maraming mga molecules na naka-attach sa tinatawag nating cell membrane. And mostly mga molecules na yon, gawa po siya sa tinatawag nating mga proteins. So proteins and protein complexes are the one responsible for the majority of the internal and also external interactions on the plasma membrane. So there are 6 classes of membrane proteins, and each serves as a specific function. For the first one, we have the what we call transporters. Yan, so from the word itself, so it is the one responsible for the movement of molecules and solutes across the cell membrane. Second one, we have the what we call enzymes. So these are proteins needed by the cell for metabolic function. Yung po itatandaan nyo kapag enzymes ha, more on metabolism po yan, or for metabolic functions. Next one, you have your what we call cell surface receptors. So kapag po sinasabi nating receptors, you are detecting. So it detects chemical messages from the environment to elicit reactions on the cell membrane. Next one is you have your cell surface identification marker. So these are proteins that binds to each other for recognition purposes. Next one is you have your cell-to-cell adhesion. So these bonds and junctions between cells. Ito po yung mga nagko-connecta from one cell to another. Yan, ang tawag po natin dyan ay cell-to-cell adhesion proteins. And for the last one is you have your what we call attachment. So kapag po sinabi nating attachment, it is the one responsible for giving shape, stability, and it is the one that coordinates chemical changes on the cell membrane. Now, we're done with the basic structures and also components of the what we call plasma membrane. And now, we can study the transport mechanisms. So when we talk about transport mechanisms again, so this allows the cell to regulate what solutes enter or exit the cell and the quantity being transported. And also, when we talk about transport mechanisms, it can be categorized into 3 types. I have here a chart showing the different classifications of transport mechanisms or types of transport mechanism. So we have here the first one, passive transport, second one is active transport, and third one is we have the bulk transport. So under passive transport, we have 3. We have simple diffusion, osmosis, and facilitated diffusion. Under active transport, you have primary active transport, secondary active transport, symport, and antiport. Under bulk transport, we have pinocytosis, phagocytosis, endocytosis, and exocytosis. So, isa-isahin po natin yung mga yan. Ayun. First one is we have passive transport. Now, ano kaya yung dahilan kung bakit siya tinawag na passive transport? Very good. It is because of energy. Kapag po sinasabi natin passive transport, it does not require the use of energy. When we talk about passive transport, it is a type of transport that relies on the concentration gradient of solutes to move them across the plasma membrane. So, ano ba yung tinatawag nating concentration gradient? So, ang tinatawag niyo pong concentration gradient ay yung difference between the concentration of a substance present sa loob at sa labas po ng cell membrane. And also, kaya siya tinawag na passive transport, just like what I mentioned a while ago, it does not require the use of energy, and also no energy will be spent to move the solutes across or to move the substances across the cell membrane. First example po ng tinatawag nating passive transport ay tinatawag nating simple diffusion. So kapag po sinabi nating simple diffusion, it is the movement of ions and molecules from higher concentration to lower concentration. Now, paano nyo ba maiintindihan agad yung concept ng higher concentration and lower concentration? So, let us assume na meron po tayong ink dito, or sabihin natin na food color, then meron naman tayo ditong glass of water. Now, kapag po nag-drop ako doon, so mapapansin nyo po, di ba, unti-unti magsispread yung colors natin dun sa mismong water. Ganon din po ang concept na tinatawag yung simple diffusion. So, nung nag-drop po kayo, yung po ngayon yung area na merong higher concentration. And from that, from an area of higher concentration, unti-unti pong kakalat yung mga molecules po ng food color, on which pupunta po ngayon siya sa area na merong low concentration. Yun po ang tinatawag nating simple diffusion. And nangyayari din po yon sa mga cells natin. Just for example, on this illustration. So, outside the cell membrane natin, meron tayo dyan tinatawag na extracellular fluid. Now, itong mga fluids na to, itong mga ions or mga molecules na to, pwede po silang mag-pass through the cell membrane. Okay? So, from a area of higher concentration, unti-unti po yung magpapass through the cell membrane papunta sa area na merong lower concentration. Next one is we have the what we call facilitated diffusion. Now, ano ba muna yung kaibahan ng simple diffusion sa facilitated diffusion? Diba sa simple diffusion, na-mention lang natin kanina na yung mga molecules doon or yung mga ions, kusa lang siyang dadaan sa plasma membrane. Wala siyang dadaanan na iba. Plasma membrane lang po mismo or cell membrane lang. Pero kapag facilitated diffusion, from the word facilitated, facilitation, so there is someone that is helping you. So dito po sa facilitated diffusion na ngayon, yung mga molecules na hindi makakadaan na direkta dun sa cell membrane, dadaan siya sa tinatawag natin mga channels. Okay? These ion channels inside aid the charged ions to move across. So proteins manage and assist the movement of solutes across the membrane. Now, yung mga molecules po ngayon na hindi makapasok ng direkta, dadaan siya sa mga channels. Now, we have here an illustration showing an example of a facilitated diffusion. Meron tayong tinatawag na extracellular fluid. Ito po yung fluid outside the cell. Now, meron mga molecules dyan. Para makapasok ngayon yung mga molecules sa labas ng cell, dadaan po yan sa tinatawag nating ion channel. Ano ba yung pwedeng daanan ng mga molecules natin during the what we call facilitated diffusion? Meron po yung dalawa na pwedeng daanan. Ito po yung tinatawag yung channel protein and also carrier protein. Ano ba muna ang kaibahan ng tinatawag nating channel at saka carrier? Kapag po sinasabi nating carrier, tagapagdala. Tagapagdala ng molecules mula sa labas, papasok. Kapag naman sinabi nating channel, ito lang po yung daanan ng molecules papasok. Okay? So kapag po sinabi nating channel proteins, so it provides a small hydrophilic passageway for specific molecules and ions. And also, some channels can remain open most of the time, which is called leak channels, while others can be opened or closed, which are called gated channels, on which itong mga gated channels na to, paano sila bubukas? So, bubukas lang po ang mga channels na yan through the presence of a stimulus. Next one, kapag naman po sinabi natin carrier protein, it requires the molecules being transported to attach itself to the carrier protein. So, kailangan mo nang dumikit ngayon ng mga molecule or nung molecule dun sa carrier protein natin para makapasok siya dun sa mismong cell. The protein then will change its shape to shuttle the molecule across the cell membrane. Okay? So, yun po ang channel protein and carrier protein. So, another example of a passive transport is we had what we call osmosis. So, kapag po sinabi natin osmosis, it is just the diffusion of water. So, water moves in the direction of the solute until the number of free water molecules are equal. So, this one is known as osmotic balance. So, paano po ba ito tinatawag nating osmotic balance? So, halimbawa po, sa labas ng cell, meron kang 97% ng water at 3% of solutes. Kapag po sinabi natin solutes, ito po yung mga different substances, ha? Okay? So, sa loob naman ng cell ngayon, meron kang 99% of water and 1% of solute. Now, ano ngayon ang mangyayari sa tinatawag nating osmosis? So, ngayon po, yung mga water molecules po sa loob ng cell natin, itatry niyang lumabas. So, kapag tinry niya pong lumabas ngayon, so magiging equal na ngayon ang number or yung tinatawag nating osmotic pressure sa loob at sa labas ng cell. The movement is influenced by the presence of solutes and their ability to pass through the membrane. Now, na-mention na din natin kanina, di ba? Meron dyan sa mga molecules, okay, magpapass through lang ako sa cell membrane. Then, yung iba naman, pwedeng hindi dumaan yung mga molecules on the plasma membrane. But, pwede po silang dumaan through the what we call aquaporins na i-mention natin mamaya. We also have here the what we call tonicity. So when we talk about tonicity, it is the difference in the osmotic concentration which leads to the movement of water. So the solution, which has a higher concentration of solutes, is described as a hypertonic solution. while the solution with a lower concentration of solutes is called hypotonic. If there is no difference in the osmotic concentration, then both solutions are described as isotonic. Ano po ba itong tinatawag natin tonicity ngayon? So, tonicity is also defined as the relative solute concentrations of two environments separated by a semi-permeable membrane. Now, para mas madali nyo maintindihan ito tinatawag nating tonicity, let us use this. Now, ano po ba yung mga applications ng tinatawag natin tonicity? So, makita nyo po ang epekto ng tinatawag natin tonicity sa mga red blood cells. So, paano po ba yon? So, let us assume na ito po mga red blood cells na to, ilalagay po natin yan sa water. Okay? Now, we're going to put these red blood cells into different types of solution. Okay? Halimbawa po, kapag sinabi natin hypertonic again, ibig sabihin, mas mataas yung solute mo. Again, mas mataas po ang solute, mas marami yung particles mo sa labas ng cell. Now, ano po ba ang mangyayari ngayon? Kapag po kasi sinabi natin hypertonic, shrink po yung clue natin dyan. Okay? Mag-shrink yung cell. Pero ano ba yung reason kung bakit mag-shrink ayun yung cell? Di ba po na-mention natin na mas maraming solute sa labas. Therefore, kapag po mas maraming solute sa labas, ang tendency po, yung water ngayon, sa loob ng cell nyo, gusto niyang lumabas para mapuntahan niya yung mga solutes. Therefore, kapag lumabas po ang water ngayon, mag-shrink po ang ating cell. Kaya nga, hypertonic shrink. Okay. Paano naman po kapag hypotonic ang solution natin? So, kapag po sinabi natin hypotonic ngayon, mababa ang solute. So, mas mababa po yung solute ng water. Now, what if ngayon, kapag sinabi kasi natin hypotonic solution at nilagay mo yung cell, mas marami nga yung solute sa loob nung cell natin, sa loob ng red blood cell. Now, kabalik na rin yan ng hypertonic. Sa hypertonic, di ba, nag-shrink. Kapag po hypotonic, tandaan niyo po, puputok po ang cell, or they will swell, or they will burst. Or ito po yung tinatawag nating lysis. Ito po yung pagsabog ng isang cell. Pero ano ba yung reason ngayon kung bakit siya sasabog? Di ba nga po, nasabi ko ngayon na kapag hypotonic yung solution mo, ibig sabihin, mas maraming solute sa loob ng cell. Therefore, kapag mas maraming solute sa loob ng cell, ang tendency po ngayon, instead na lumabas yung water, papasok po ngayon yung water. Kapag po pumasok ngayon yung water, magsaswell po yan, and definitely, magbaburst. Okay? Next one is you also have here the what we call isotonic solution. So, kapag po sinabi natin isotonic solution, walang mangyayari. Ito po ang kailangan sa body natin. Kailangan po pareho yung tinatawag nating osmotic concentration, or there is no difference in the osmotic concentration. And also, di ba, minsan na-experience nyo na ba na ibabad nyo yung kamay, or maligo sa swimming pool, or maligo sa dagat, then afterwards, di ba, makita nyo, unti-unti kumukulubot na yung balat nyo. Pero ano ba yung reason kung bakit kumukulubot ngayon yung balat nyo doon? Ibig sabihin po nun, so yung solution doon ay hypertonic. Ibig sabihin po, yung water po sa katawan nyo, lumalabas siya para puntahan niya yung mga solutes doon sa labas. Okay? That is an example of the application of tonicity. Okay, so this illustration shows what they call osmosis that happens on red blood cells. Okay, so the effect of tonicity is different on plants. So plant cells are affected differently with tonicity. So since the inside of a cell is naturally hypertonic due to the large amount of solutes located in the central vacuole, constant osmotic pressure is being exerted on the plasma membrane, causing it to be pushed firmly against the cell wall. The internal pressure that is created now is called turgor pressure, and it provides plant cells their normal turgid appearance. So if plant cells are not placed in a hypotonic solution, they will not appear as turgid. If they are placed on an isotonic solution, the lowered turgor pressure causes the plant to appear flaccid. However, if they are placed in a hypertonic solution, the plasma membrane shrinks away from the cell wall. So that is the effect of tonicity on plants. So one of the special proteins that is used for the passage of water is what they call aquaporins. So aquaporins are the channels that allows the water molecules to move across the membrane in large quantities. Mostly po kasi, yung iba mga water molecules natin, okay, nakakadaan nga sila dito sa tinatawag nating plasma membrane. Kaso iilan lang. Kasi nga, semi-permeable ang plasma membrane. Pero, in order for a large amount of water molecules to pass through the what we call cell membrane and to go inside and outside the cell, dadaan po yan sa tinatawag nating aquaporins. Tandaan niyo po kapag from the word aqua, dito po dumadaan ang large amount of water.